You got homework at 3 o'clock. You got soccer at 5. You got dinner at 6. And then we're off to CCD at 8 o'clock. And you better be on time for all of it. Are our kids scheduled or overscheduled? Hi, welcome back to The Art of Fatherhood. I'm Brian Fauci.
And I'm Patrick Marino.
And today we are going to talk about getting your kids to just be cool with doing nothing.
Is that what we're going to talk about?
We're going to talk about scheduled versus overscheduled.
Yeah, I think so.
I think the point you made a minute ago when you were on your fucking rant that you're on is that the real thing here is how frequently our kids are uncomfortable in the space of nothingness. Right. And that's in not having you made an awesome reference as an adult. And I think our listeners could kind of close their eye and relate to this really well. You're standing in line waiting for something. Be the TSA line, could be and you have no phone or nothing. And you're just standing there. That was life 20 years ago. Yeah. Right. And how did what did you do during that time?
I just zoned out.
Stood. And you thought, right?
Zoned out.
I get those moments where everything goes away and I just sit in the moment, and it honestly takes me a minute to adjust. And then the really interesting thing and a little uncomfortable is the fact that for a moment I'm uncomfortable, which is odd to me. It's odd to me that being able to just be in a space of no stimuli. Have you ever done sensory deprivation?
I have not.
That's pretty interesting. That's what our kids should really do. What is your kid's schedule like now? Give me the average day in the life of child Marino.
My child, according to him, has no time.
So busy.
He's so busy. He
has
no time to chill. Dad, I never get to chill.
Alice in Wonderland, the
rabbit? The reality is my kid is not overscheduled.
No.
At all. But it's all relative. Mm-hmm. The only thing that the kid knows is the kid knows how the kid is feeling. Mm-hmm. And the kid thinks. And that perception is reality. Right? But the reason why I want to talk about this today is because when I used to, maybe your kids were more similar to what I dealt with, right? When I was involved in coaching, you were frequently seeing the kid getting changed in the car because they were going from school to tutoring to practice to another practice to then go back, do homework, and go home, right? And I was thinking to myself, because they're involved in multiple sports, after school activity, and then they were in honors classes, right? So there's no chill, right? And they have siblings. So now it's like they have all of that, and then they have to go from their siblings' activity to this. They're changing the car, doing their homework in the car and all that. And I was thinking, my God, I hope my kid is not scheduled like that when I get to the point where I'm the father. Mm-hmm. However, having a child and having him have or I'm just like, you know what, we're not going to do 2 sports. We're just going to do 1 sport. And that was like 3 days where they're doing nothing. And in this year, it's not just sitting around like zoning out. It is zoning out on the phone with YouTube on the TV.
Right.
Fortnite.
Right.
Right. So it is like, so I'm like, that's where I struggle. Right. It's like I don't want to overschedule. But if I underschedule, then there's so much of this. But going back to your point, should he be having those times where he's got to somehow figure out what to do? Is that important for the kids?
Yeah. So
it's like you've got the overscheduled where it's obviously too much. It's so much stress that I've seen the kids break down. Mm-hmm. Right. And or it's not just the kids, it's the family. Mm-hmm. The stress in the family breaks the family down. Or is it the underscheduling where it's like they're just sitting around freaking couch potato and they can't figure out, they don't have the capacity to keep themselves busy. And we've kind of taken that away from them for the overscheduling. I don't know. It's I've just completely meandered. I've wandered.
So let's look. I think if we can visualize this as a circular movement, right, of progress that, it just kind of goes in this loop. This is how I relate to what you're talking about. And I think other parents will relate to this. My child, it's the summer. my child is spending a lot of time. Let's ditch the boredom thing for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. And then come back to that.
Live in the now, baby.
I think we could do let's focus on the overscheduled piece. And then we can talk a little bit more about managing downtime, I think in a separate podcast.
Okay.
To keep within our 20-minute time frame of hitting this, right? But so let's look at the circle. Circle starts here. I'm going to start it here because it's a good beginning point. It's the summer, and my kid is doing the things you just said a lot. TV, video games, on the phone, right? In this space of not really doing anything that is productive. Okay. Which, let's not go right or wrong, that's where they are. That triggers us to be like, this kid needs something. So what do? We start to schedule. They're like, all right, great. In the fall, we're going to get them into the soccer program. Okay, they're going to go back to school. We're going to get them into soccer program. And maybe if we got him, and then our mind's like, well, maybe if we got him a little job, right? We get him a little job, he'll make some money. Now, everything's reactionary. Right? This is reactive parenting, right? We always talk about this a lot. We're trying to go away from reactive parenting, right? And to what's the term we use? Not reactive. Intentional parenting, right? So reactive parenting is where we mostly find ourselves here. So we react by creating the schedule. And inevitably, September rolls around and we've instituted some work stuff for them to keep them doing stuff over the summer. We signed them up for the sports. And then, like you said, we're like, yeah, maybe we'll do sports because, then they'll get in shape, or we got them in some other activity. And now it is that. It is wake up at 6, school at 7, home at 3, homework till 4, out to the practice till 6, home for dinner, out to the right. And now we're like, and I feel like my son, who's 15, his Wednesday looks like this. It is school, home for homework, off to practice, out to work for 3 hours, back home to get ready for the next day. And it is just like, it's a little insane. But it got there partially because in the moment of the boredom space, and then we go from scheduled to overscheduled, and then what do? And we try to all right, we're going to pull back. And then inevitably we end up pulling back sometimes instead of balancing, we pull back to phase 1. But I feel like so much of this process starts because as parents, we get frustrated when our kids are managing their quote unquote boredom with the same things that we think are too much this, too much TV, too much video games, too much that. I think that starts the cycle.
That could be part of it. I think a lot of it is even less intentional than that, though. I think a lot of it's just soccer signups are coming up. Right, he wants to do soccer, and then fall ball. Oh, all the kids are doing baseball in the fall too. Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll do that too. And then he wants to do this after school program. Oh yeah, fine. And you don't do the math in your head because now you're like, oh shit, I've got 3 kids. Mm-hmm. I forgot about that. I forgot I had 3 kids. Mm-hmm. Right now they're all signed up for all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, how the hell are we going to do it?
Right.
So I think a lot of the overscheduling happens even less intentional than what you described, which is I don't want them to be bored.
Right.
I think that what happened with me was intentional and unintentional. Right. So the intentional part is seeing, I don't want that for my kid because I grew up seeing that. But now dealing with the consequences of that has been that he sits around more than maybe I would like. And then the question is, what's the right solution? Because in my head, there's some sort of balance that's correct, right? Because, I think there's some studies of this. You can say that Dr. LaFauci might be able to answer this, right? So there's some, I think there are some studies, or at least there's some anecdotal studies where it shows and you're the scheduler, right? The more scheduled you are, the more busy you are, the more you have to focus, right? So it's like if I'm a teenager and I have school sports and I have work and I have a larger homework load, I'm better able to manage that because I have to schedule it. Because if I don't figure out when I'm doing the homework and if I don't have it all figured out, then I'm not going to get it done. Whereas and this is good for our business podcast as well, right?
Absolutely,
When
yeah.
you're the entrepreneur and you're making your own hours,
Yep.
and you can just do the work whenever you want to.
Yep.
Sometimes it doesn't get done. It's like I
What
have
are you-
so
what are you-
much time to
what are you
myself.
talking about?
I have so much time to do it that I don't actually schedule it, right?
Yeah.
And so it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, that's the balance, right? And it's like the less free time, the more intentional you have to be about when you do stuff. Because if you don't, then it doesn't get, but the more free time you have, then you end up being, oh, you know what? Like I can just do it whenever.
So the solution, I think people listen for a solution. I would like to think.
Right.
And sometimes the solution that you and I kind of come to often gets formed through the conversation. I think there's times with some of the podcasts we do where we come into it knowing the exact solution right out the gate that we want to lead to.
Yeah.
But I think this one's a little different because as going into it, I wasn't sure where I'd want to take, where I would suggest to go, I should say. And one of the things that I think this is really relating with me is when you brought in the fact that, well, we schedule ourselves like this if we're block scheduling for our business, which I love. And one of the things I do on that end is I start with family time, friends time, workout time.
Yeah.
And my schedule gets built off of that.
Right.
So I think for an effective way for
Which
parents,
for our children, school is not something we can schedule. It's just there.
it's
right?
there,
It's
right?
there,
So
right?
and I should
And
also
then
say
the
that
after school stuff comes in, right? And it's like, okay, now we got to put that in. But then you don't realize that the two practices overlap, or there's not going to be enough time to get between the two practices.
Yes.
Right? That's where it really
Well,
comes in.
but I become
Or-
smart enough to know that.
Or now there's two of us going in different directions.
Yes.
And it's like, how the hell are we going to do this handoff?
Yes. 3 o'clock, I've come to know that with school age children, at 3 o'clock, I just need to free my day.
Right.
So I block it for the most part. There's certain things that will fall at, on random days, but it's minimal for the most part. And I just get to the mindset, like for the most part, unless I can't avoid it, 3 o'clock on, I'm freeing my day. And with our kids, an effective way to manage this is to say, okay, we're trying to avoid that overscheduled piece where our kids just feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So if we start by being intentional with what amount of time in a day is really good that all kids should have just to whatever it is they're doing. Like I said, we'll do a follow-up podcast on, how to be bored, right? And how to really just, let your mind calm, is to block it out. And I think we can realistically agree that, hey, there's probably on a good weekday, they need at least probably an hour to just, maybe even an hour and a half to just do nothing. Now that might be before bed. For some kids, if they come home really tired, maybe that's the time where that block needs to sit, right? And yes, there are certain things like sports are going to fill that, and we may have to move that block. But if we have it on the calendar, and the one thing I do like about block scheduling is it does allow for flexibility because I can say, well, this block was here and that one was there, but today I just need to flop them. Everything's still getting done and the time is still there blocked out, right? So sometimes you got to move it a little bit, but at least you have identified in a 14-hour day of activity, there's this block there where we're just going to be cool with. And as we go through the process of letting our kid sign up for more and do whatever, have more schedule in their life, because there is a positive, we're having that conversation with them like, hey, buddy, if you do that, what's it going to do to this downtime here? How's it going to affect that, right? And so now it is an intentional conversation. And you inevitably might still get there, but at least there's a much more, because I've done exactly what you're talking about.
Right. And I think there's a lot of FOMO. It's a lot of FOMO. It's a lot of FOMO. I think that for most parents, it's FOMO. Again, it's like at the young ages, 12, 13, we're not there yet.
Aren't we ridiculous?
Well, I mean, I don't know what the right answer is, because if you think to yourself, okay, if my kid skips fall baseball because in the winter we're doing basketball, in the spring we're doing soccer and baseball, it's like, okay, well, do we need to do fall baseball too. What are the consequences of that? They miss out in the season. When they come back in the winter for batting practice, they're not going to be as good as the kids that played all year, right? And that's, I think, a big part of it. I think it's a lot of it's FOMO. It's like, well, if I don't sign my kid up every single thing that they have the opportunity to do, they're going to fall behind in that thing.
So that's
right? So now it's like, again, like, you talk about block scheduling. Here's what's happening in my program right now.
Mm-hmm.
There are 0 schedules out, right? Where the season is this weekend.
And you don't even know when they're going to be.
And so the parents just found out about practice schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 2 kids who can't make any of the practices because of all the other activities they're doing.
Got other shit
right?
scheduled.
So they're going to maybe try and be flexible about some things, and maybe they're going to move something around. And again, like that's that kid by himself,
right?
In a family of 3 kids.
Yep.
Right. So you just don't like. I don't think it's I don't know what the answer is, but I do know that I want my kid to have a level of structure that is enough that he has to deal with it.
Right. Versus
having no structure, no schedule, where it's like too many days on the couch. I do believe that they need a day of nothing if you can.
Well, that used to be Sunday when we were kids.
Right.
Nothing was scheduled on Sunday. If you remember when, we were growing up, Sunday was, you couldn't even go to the store when we were young.
Well, I remember that. Yeah. I mean, but
there's a reason for that.
I started playing sports on Sundays though when I was like 13.
I would love to see us go back to that as a society.
Right.
I absolutely. And when we owned, we unfortunately, and I get the battle in doing this. I'm always impressed with businesses that like Chick-fil-A, Hobby Lobby, we're closed on Sunday. It's what we're doing. I don't want to, right? And we contemplated that with the sport complex heavily.
He would have gone out of business.
And that was tough because that is like
you have 2 days a week to do business.
That's the big, So, I mean, and that was a tough decision for me because I really wanted to do that. And then we're like, all right, do we just open at noon? Do we close in the mornings so that we're not dragging anyone here for sports Sunday morning? But I do think there's something to be said for that. My suggestion in everything, we can't fix this problem holistically, probably, but we can be conscious and we can make a step to getting better at helping our kids pull back a little bit from being overscheduled, and that is to have blocks of time where it is there for them to do nothing. Mm-hmm. And that block may flex from day to day, but they're aware of it. Hey, listen, every day you need Woody, and you can have that conversation because different kids are different, right? They'll be like, yeah, I don't need that much time. And some kids be like, yeah, I get like my son, when he goes into social situations, it's draining for him. And he has a lot of friends. He's always out with them. But when he comes home, he's like, I like being with my friends, but it's like, it's like introvert, extrovert. Like that energy gets sucked out of him. Mm-hmm. So he really looks forward to the nothing.
Yeah. So avoid FOMO and be intentional.
Absolutely.
I think that's a big part of it is avoid the FOMO. Be like, and don't just sign up. Think, okay, well, and plus, like, you could do fall ball next year and skip it this year. Yeah.
What percentage of kids end up making their living through being a professional
athlete? It's very close to zero. It's not zero, but it's closer to zero.
We treat all of our kids like they're going to go all the way.
Well, I'm going to take some of we talked about this in the past. I'm going to take some of that out. I don't think there's a lot of parents who really feel that way.
I think at a young age,
I think that most of them are more likely to just be like, I want them to be
engaged
and successful and not sitting around and do things with their friends. I think there's far fewer kids who are, especially around our area, who are just like, my kid's got to go out and get a scholarship in sports. I think it's rarer.
And their buddies are doing it too. So they're like, but
FOMO.
To that, it comes down to just be your own parent.
Say no.
Yeah, be your own parent. You don't need that.
You got to say no.
Yes. Good stuff.
Oh, I don't know if we figured anything out, but
solved.
We talked.
We had
a conversation.
We made our listeners take an intentional step to trying to minimize overscheduled behavior.
Yeah, when all the signups come out, instead of just being, all right, we're going to sign up.
Think. And don't just listen to your kids say, yeah, I want to do that. Yeah. I want to do that too,
you got to be a parent.
Yeah, kid tell kid that, hey, signups, it's like they just took three hits of cocaine. I want to do that too.
Unfortunately, for a lot of my stuff, it's like my kid's just like, no, I don't want to do it. Well, now we're not doing anything.
No, they got the opposite.
We're not doing anything.
Got the opposite.
We got to schedule some stuff in.
It's awesome. All right, good stuff. Balance your kid's schedule. I'm Brian LaFauci.
Patrick Marino.
Till next time.
Thank you.